Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer, and I'm Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. And I also have a Ravelry group called Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to take part in knit-alongs and just get in touch and just if you need any pattern help, all that stuff is happening over there. So hi and welcome, or welcome back. If you're new here, this is kind of like my knitting talk show where I sit and talk about knitting for about an hour, ideally every other week, but it's just sometimes it just be like that. So to returning viewers, hi, it's good to see you again. On the program today, I have quite a few works in progress. I've been knitting quite a bit because I got sick. So that's going to be the frame for this episode. A lot of people getting COVID these days, not great. No, me, I got a infection. So tomorrow's my last antibiotic day and then I'm good, I'm done. So I've been a bit bedridden with fever and the likes, so just generally kind of took energy out of me, to be fair. So I picked up a project I had actually totally forgotten about because it's not one of those old ones that's like stuck in my mind for a while. But it was also old enough that when I find it, I was like, what is this? What? Oh, right. So we'll get to that when we get to that. I'm also working on some designs in progress that I thought I might actually show you because that's fun. And yeah, so apart from that, I just thought I'd mention my current ongoing knit-alongs, which is the Skeindeer Knits Garment Cal 2022. The way that you enter that is basically knitting any of my garment patterns and submit that in a finished objects thread that I will be starting at the end of the year. They just have to be made during this year, and you get as many entries as many projects as you make that are my garment patterns. So yeah, I'm also running a festive yoke cal for my festive yoke cardigan and pullover patterns that I started for last Christmas, and we're going to be finishing up for the next Christmas. So those are two knit-alongs. You can also take part in both. It's a very damp day in London today. I can already tell. I got the windows shut, but still I'm just like, whew, the perspiration in this city today. My goodness, it's a lot of clouds, it's a lot of rain, and a lot of knitting. As I was just mentioning, I've been working on a quite grand old project of mine, very close to the finishing line now actually. I don't know what struck me because I got sick with an infection, which is past, it's gone now. I'm just doing one more day of antibiotics because that's what I was told to do. It really hit me the day after May 17th. So for those of you who don't know, May 17th is the Norwegian national holiday for constitution, independence, blah, blah, blah. It's a really fun day. I've talked a lot about it on here before, where Norwegians just come out and pour into the streets and just like wave flags and have a lot of ice cream and hot dogs and waffles and go in parades as marching bands. It's like a whole thing. It's a very like Children's Day, and Norwegians in London tend to celebrate that in Southwark Park, so I went there and that was really good. I saw some familiar faces and yeah, all good, and I had a great day. Wrapped up the day both in North London and East London, and I went really all over the place. So did you hear that? That was thunder. Okay, we've got thunder in today's episode. But anyway, I had a great day, and then the next day I was like, something's wrong. I'd already been suppressing a fever with paracetamol for a couple of days because it was like such a light fever, like you literally could just do away with it with one pill, right? So I got a pretty bad fever the next day. I was like, this is not good. And also the symptoms of the infection, which I shall not share on the podcast, I was like, this is bad. And after trying to convince people on 111 phone lines that this needs to be attended to, I just dragged myself down to the hospital in the urgent care, which is the most dystopian experience I've had with NHS. But thank goodness, once I got through that after a 3 to 4 hours wait, it was great. People looked after me. I'm very grateful. It was good. They've checked up on me. They've called back. Yeah. It was an interesting experience. And so I had the next couple of days with fever and the likes, and I couldn't even knit. I had several days where I was just like kind of resting my head on my pillow, just watching a lot of Netflix shows and what have you. I could talk so much about all the shows I watched. There's so many great ones. Finally, I managed to find a little bit more strength in my hands and arms to knit, and strangely decided with my limited strength to tackle a worsted weight cable project. I don't know about you guys, but I find that when I work cables, I feel like that's a bit more of a workout than regular knitting. It's a lot of shifting around stitches to sort of twist them around. It's a little bit harder to do. It's harder on the hands, especially if you're a tight knitter like me. The stitches aren't actually hanging very loosely already, so it's yeah, what a way to get strength back in your arms, if anything. So I bet you're wondering, what is this project? Which old cable project is it? Is it that one or that one or that one? Because there's a few I've got. I both have the Soda cardigan and Stag pullover laying around. There is the, I think it's called the Knox pullover by Michelle Wong. That's another cable project that I haven't finished. But no, it's neither of those. It's the Widow's Kiss that I started in 2021. It's early last year, so just over a year ago. And what I had done then was the sleeves. The stocking sleeves, they were pretty quick to do. Took a skein and a half each. They come in these like little balls of yarn, so 1.5 of these. And I had done about this much of the body-ish. Yeah, about right. I don't know what possessed me, but I have been working on this thing for no other reason, just the pleasure of knitting, which is exactly what I like to get when I knit someone else's patterns. This is the Thea Coleman pattern. And I just want to show you how far I've got. Look at that! Look at that! I wouldn't believe it myself if I didn't see it. Just, it's so much cables. This thing is heavy. And I am legit worried about whether I have enough yarn to finish off this yoke. Now I have got quite far, as you can see, with a couple of balls of yarn. I know I have about like this length left of the yoke or something like that. And I only have this left. I got one of those like kind of discounted batches of yarn that you can get from Knit Picks. This is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted non-superwash. Lovely yarn. Doesn't really have any metrics on it, but it's 110 yards per 50 gram ball. And I've used a whole bag. There's a 1/2 kilo of yarn plus 2 extra balls, and now this is the third and last one. I don't tend to make garments that weigh more than 1/2 kilo unless we're talking about the famous Kusagoff there. So this is going to be one of those. And I really do hope I have enough yarn, because Knit Picks is American yarn, so I'd have to order from overseas. Now, it is the one source of yarn that I know of that I can actually order without struggling with import tax, because Knit Picks takes care of it. Thank goodness. Don't know how they do that, but that's great. But it's still a overseas order, and I'd rather not do that for one ball of yarn. So I'm really hoping this one's going to go a long way. Wish me luck. And yeah, what else is there to say? Obviously the stitch markers here I just used to track how many repeats of the cable I've done. I don't really need anyone except for the last one, because that one marks the last cable round, so I can count the 7 straight rounds of just rib that you can see happens in between here. It's a little 2x2 rib in this one. It's basically just a 2x2 rib jumper that cross over every so often. Well, you look at that. Look at that. So I am very, very excited about this, because I have actually never made myself a full-on cable garment before. I have done the Chuck pullover, but it isn't a lot of cables. It's fairly quick. It's just a bit of a panel in the front, right? I have done a Michelle Wong, I believe, cable jumper for a friend of mine, the Oyster cardigan, I think it was called. And that made me realize, like, I could actually do that for myself too. If I can do that for a friend, I should be able to do that for myself. I almost wanted to keep it, but it wasn't quite my size and silhouette. So this was gonna be it. I mean, this one and a couple of the other whips around. I'm actually really itching to pick up the Stag pullover after this one, but no promises made there. Yeah, my first proper full on cable garment. You can see how lovely these cables are once you give them like a light block. Not entirely sure how I'm going to do that yet. I think I'll literally just give it a soak, press out as much water as I can. I might just run it in the spin cycle in the machine, and yeah, just lay it flat to dry. Some people prefer steaming the cables to make them kind of retain the pop. I think my method will retain the pop as well, because I'm not going to be stretch blocking or pressing it or anything like that. You don't want to lose definition with these cables. Not that I'm worried about that with this Knit Picks yarn. It's quite a nice round defined wool. Wow, the weather today. We had lovely sun, and now it's storming actually. Why do all knitting podcasts turn into weather podcasts? I do not know. Perhaps because we rely on natural daylight for, knitting viewing pleasure. But yeah, I can only rave about this yarn. I do really like Knit Picks yarn as a whole. One of the best affordable yarn companies that I know of that I'm happy to recommend. I don't know anything particularly bad about them, so I like this yarn. I worked with heavier Wool of the Andes yarn before, and this is like my first exploration into the worsted weight one. And it's good. I have another red sweater quantity of this, just not as much as of the grey. Really, I hope the grey will be enough. I did actually know that I had less than the pattern called for this size, and I could have done a smaller size, but I have actually gone and done a couple of modifications that I was hoping would make up for it. Yeah, I did increase a little bit more for the sleeves because I just figured I could decrease that pretty quickly afterwards. I don't think that's been adding a whole lot. What I have mainly done is shortening the yoke. Because I'm a designer as well. I am very, you know, adept at grading, and basically I plotted in all the numbers from this pattern for every size, just for the arm side to see the decreases for sleeve and body and kind of get a sense of how many rows that is and just how I design. I just did that with that pattern so I could see. Would I actually be happy with the solution that's chosen for the size that I am doing? And I figured I probably wouldn't be. I thought the yoke was way too deep for me for that size. And I didn't really see the point because the rounds extra that added that extra depth didn't have any decreases in them. It would have just been so much extra yarn used for that extra length that I just didn't want. So I found a way to skip out on those. Where there were some decreases at the very end of that, I just shifted further up and it all just added up beautifully, a little bit of planning and that's all. It even gave me an opportunity to plan out where these crisscrosses are going to be until I stop doing them and just only rib up to the neckline. So great way of doing it. Is it necessary for the casual knitter? Absolutely not. I just like to know. And I don't like how a lot of larger sizes just tend to have a too deep yoke for my liking. I want to be able to lift my arms without lifting the entire jumper. So I think I'm going to get about 21, a little bit more than 21 centimeters depth from here down to the underarm. And that's not counting the bit of the sleeve that's going to be up here and a lot of stitches band off the underarm. So I really do think I'm going to have a lot of space still. I could have probably taken out more, but let's not get too hasty now. I do want this to be a cozy pullover after all. So I should have saved up enough yarn removing that considerable section to have enough yarn for this full jumper. Yeah. So a bit spooked that that may not be the case. I just really hope this is going to go a long way. I am decreasing after all, so I may just, you know, be comparing to this part here and think that I need that yet. And that was, you know, one skein might be enough now that I am actually working with increasingly fewer stitches. But yeah, I just I can't stop gushing over this texture, honestly. We got to do a little close up. We got to do it. You guys know what I'm about. Hopefully that's going to show because I can't see anything. It's just, I just love the tactileness of cables. You just like want to stroke your hands over it. It's like, there's something about it. I kind of hate doing cables. I also love it. I get into a zone, in the zone about it. I just get, you know what I mean. But at the same time, it's tedious on the hands. I just look forward to when I'm not doing a cable round. But that's the sort of thing that keeps me going. So I kind of get the same thing from purling. I famously do not like to purl. I just want to knit. I want to work in the round, you know. But not liking the purl rows really makes me carry on quickly so I can get to a knit row again. And I'm finding that effect with cables as well. Just feeling like the cables are a little bit too much work makes me speed through them and get to a regular rib round or whatever it is. So far so good. Gonna be a heavy one, like I said. It's gonna be well over half a kilo, but cozy jumper, you know, staying warm and snugly at home, which we might need because this is quite a chilly May and tomorrow's June and it's not really looking up, so yay. And going by the utility bills in this country these days, my goodness, I'm just not even gonna get started on that. But yeah, huge shout out to Thea Coleman's Widow's Kiss pattern and Knit Picks Wool of the Andes yarn. Oh, I do want to say a little bit about the construction actually, before we wrap this up. I do like this because it's a kind of what I like to call a modified raglan. So it is a raglan. What I'm doing now, I am decreasing on sleeve and body every other round. It's really not too mysterious, but there was way more rapid decreases on the body side only at first, and there will be more on the body side only at the end, which will shape the shoulders quite nicely. It will increase more for the body right here. I think that's better than a regular raglan. I get very excited when I see more designers do raglans like that has that slight different beginning and end, so that you get, because the body is like that. You go first very quickly out for the shoulders, and then it's quite straightish. You're increasing a little bit obviously because you want to be able to move your arms, but then there's quite a lot. Raglans are quite uniform. There's just a diagonal line, and so I like when people can kind of move something. I've actually done that myself with the Coast chunky weight patterns. If you want to try it in a quick knit, that will be a good one to try that. Love this jumper, love this pattern, highly recommend. Having a lot of fun with it. Can't believe cables was going to bring my knitting mojo back after that whole illness thing. That was unexpected, but it's kept me in the zone. Other things that have kept me in the zone is some designs that I'm working on. A lot of the times I have too much confidence in my own planning of releasing soonish and all that stuff that I don't share until they come out, and then other times I am too confident that I'll be releasing soon that I share, and then you guys have to wait for longer than necessary, and I don't know which one this is. But I think it's more fun to show you guys when I'm working on something instead of just be like, new thing, you've never seen it before. Like, you want to be able to take part in the process in some sense. And I have already talked about this project last episode, I think. I was asking you guys a little bit about how you thought I should work with the 2-color 2-ply yarn from Lofoten Wool. So they have this yarn that has 1 ply in the natural black yarn and one that's dyed naturally blue over the naturally white yarn. And it's like a sport fingering weight yarn, and I've decided what to design with it. Which is kind of funny because I was given yarn to design with, and I bought this yarn for funsies, and of course that's where I start designing. Of course that's what I do. That's why am I like this? This could have been anything, but yeah, no, I made a design and it's been fun. A fun little, so no pressure or anything, you know. So, as I said earlier, it's contiguous. So we're starting with the contiguous method here. It's like kind of a straight back neckline, increasing for the shoulders. You get like a cute little shoulder here. That's all done in one piece. Feels a little bit like when you start off with a raglan before you join in the front, so you can have a lower neckline. It's fairly straightforward. I've done it with Floof. I've done it with Pure Fuzz. They might be my only contiguous ones. I'm not sure. Yeah, Cherry Puff also has that. The working title of this is the Arctic Summer Eve Tea. A bit of a mouthful, but I kind of like it, so I might stick with it. Arctic Summer Eve Tea. These are the sleeves. Ignore this thread. This is just to measure the length from here to here, so I can write that in the pattern. It's not going to be a thread through there. It's straight from here. You get the idea. So these are the little cuffs for the t-shirt. I am so pleased with this. This is what I had in mind, and it's just translated directly into the knitting. This one looks a little bit wonky just because I went up in heel size for the color work here, and actually realized it's better if I don't. Contrary to how I normally do things, so it flares quite nicely when you're wearing it. It doesn't like flare out, it just sort of stays open and feels like a t-shirt. So with blocking, this is gonna straighten out a little bit more obviously, and then that's that. So that's the t-shirt. It's quite sort of not really any negative or positive ease down to the underarm, and as soon as you get to the underarm there is a slight A-line increase. So I actually wanted that full increase to be at the full bust already, but I actually figured if I start off here, we're already going to be halfway by the time we're at the full bust, and finish it a bit further down and sort of get an A-line that gives positive ease at the bust sort of gradually. Depending on how low your bust is, you may get that sooner or later, you know, but that's generally the idea. So it does actually have positive ease, but it has a pretty neat shoulder fit still. So I'm very pleased with the whole fit situation of this thing. I did not finish the lower hem with this hem. So you can see here there's like a white inside that I've sewn to the inside. You know what, it's up to you if you want to bind off to the inside, if you literally want to graft it in, because it's really easy. I'm not sure we're going to get to that. It's actually quite easy to sew for a change without messing up which row. But I went with a slight different hem for the body, and I'm really, really pleased with this. I'm going to try to fake it because I actually haven't sewed it in yet. But that is a good chance to demonstrate how that's done. So that's the edge of the body. So it has a more substantial colorwork chart here. And I'm glad I did, because I think that's better for the body because it's just a bigger circumference than the sleeves. So here I can get away with a smaller edge, but you kind of need something a little bit longer to make that stay down. And that's the one I went with, which is actually the same as Kuusikofta. Sort of. I mean, it is. The edge is actually not sewed down yet. And that's kind of what I want to show you, because you actually measure this length against this length that you already done. And on the inside, that's where there's a white row. So it's really easy to track where you are going to graft that down, whether you want to graft or you want to bind off, or however way you like to do that. Amazing. Because normally, like, if you have to do it in the middle of here, it's like, which row was I on again? Was it that one or was that one? I don't know. You got to, like, pull a strand of yarn through it a lot of the time. Here, you really don't have to, because it's changing color. Just making your life easier. You're welcome. So if I'm going to show you the whole thing in one kind of thing, one shot. That's where we're at now. Obviously it does not look A-line now that it's all on the needles, but it is A-line shaped. It does flare out, not in. Flare in doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? So yeah, I'm loving this color. I'm loving the marledness. I was worried it was going to look too busy first, but it really, really doesn't. It's great. And I'm still thinking about what to do about the neckline. I do want to pick up with white yarn, and I might just do a simple white round and just bind off. I don't think I could fit in the color work because I wonder if the neckline might be stand up. If I do that, I'm not going to go in against the neck. But I don't want to do it, but it's just not a thing that's featuring here, so we'll find out what I do. I think I might keep it quite open the way it is, so I think thin line around, something like that. We'll see. I did actually get a really neat suggestion about using Latvian braids for the edging, and I really liked that idea, and I tried it, but unfortunately with the very loose gauge that I'm using, as you can see, it's a very thin fabric. It's 20 stitch gauge for sportwear yarn. That is a little bit on the lighter side, but wool and spun yarn is quite forgiving in that regard. But that made the Latvian braids look like you couldn't even see that they were supposed to be braids. Latvian braids need to be worked quite firmly for that to really pop and look like a braid and not just like a tangle of yarn. And it looked like just a tangle of yarn, so I had to rip that out. Unfortunately, it wasn't working with the current fabric gauge that this whole design is in. So that's on me. We're gonna have to put Latvian braids on something else another time. Like all my mitten patterns, really. But yeah, look at that. I'm just really pleased with this. I thought this was perfect little chart to put at the edge here. So definitely still keeping that Scandinavian influence that I always put on my stuff, but it's more summer friendly, you know, Arctic summer eve tea. That's kind of the idea, just for when it gets a bit chilly in the evening and you still want your knitwear and you're like, finally, the hour has come. And I'm sort of imagining this sort of color on the sky when it is midnight in Norway in the summer, depending on how far north you are. It can be quite bright at midnight. I mean, if you're far enough north, you get the sun the whole night, but where I'm from, it's just more like a kind of dusk feeling throughout. So more on this in a bit. I'll have to write it down, get over to my tech editor, do some photography once it's finished, that sort of thing. Got some test knits in the work, but generally I want to get it out sooner than later, so stay tuned for that one. I am also working on some other designs. You may remember the orange onesie that I made for my nephew, which I've yet to release. I should really get around to that. I decided it would also be fun to do a pullover version of that. And I did it with some raw work yarn that I got to design this with. So this is like kind of one of my collabs, I suppose. Look at me collabing. And here it is. It's adorable. These colors, so my sister actually chose these colors on behalf of my nephew while I was at the Unravel festival in February in Farnham. And so credit to her for these color choices, because they really, really worked out really well in raw work DK yarn. I love the pop of like yellowy orange, and the rest is just navy green. Navy green, that's not a thing. Bottle green, forest green. Love these colors. Love how it's looking on this jumper. This is like, I think, size 4 years old or something like that. Because I figured it might be a while till I actually give this to my nephew, and summer's coming. So, and I thought the numbers actually deliberately add up so that you could continue doing the color work all the way down to the body if you want to. There's a little bit of finagling in terms of how you want to finish it up, in terms of repeating the zigzag, the transition from here, like that's kind of up to you. So I'm not writing the pattern to do that, but know that the stitch count is adding up for you to continue the color work all the way, should you want to. And I wanted to try this out on the smallest size. So I did it with the leftovers. How cute is this? It is so cute. I'm not sure these are like my color preferences of choice. I probably had enough of the green to do predominantly green still. I didn't really know how much yarn I have left. Ignore the loose stitches here. It's a situation we don't need to talk about it. But it's so small and it's so tiny, and it does show what it would look like with color work all over. So you can imagine that with this one as well. So that is a possibility. It's just a little bit tough to like say exactly how to get back here, especially with the sleeves. It's kind of where I'm at now. So that's like more of a bonus feature if you want to do that. But yeah, absolutely enjoying working with this yarn. Raw work yarn is just delicious. I've raved about it enough already, so I think you get the idea. But yeah, just Having a lot of fun with it. This is a very simple top-down raglan, in case you're wondering. I'm in fact working up a little kind of opening for the smaller sizes because I figured the neckline, well, it fits really well here. Baby's massive heads, what can I say? So keeping it more open here, so you drain the rib a bit later. Seems like an easier solution for that. So it can open quite massively, actually, and then you can put a button on or something and it will sit on quite snugly. But yeah, that's that. So that will be, I don't remember the sizes I made, but I think they quite go up to where adult sizes begin. If I was to ever make this for adults, I have no plans to, but who knows? I'd have to probably look into modified raglans for that if I'm going to do that, because I'm not a big believer in raglans for adults. Just don't get me started, unless you do like Thea Coleman's pattern where it has a bit more shaping here and under here. Then I'm into it. So I might look into that. I literally just thought about this now. This is for children only for now, for the time being. The chart itself I actually got from, surprise, surprise, Sarbu. There's a chart like this that was normally used vertically actually on stockings, and I thought it would be cool to put that horizontally around on a yoke. So those were my works in progress. No finished objects and no new patterns as of yet, but stay tuned for that. Really hoping that tee is going to come out soon. I think that'd be great. I also have a shawl pattern coming out any minute now. Very excited about that, but I'll talk about that when it actually comes out. So acquisitions. I had the best package ever sent to me by my dear mom, who did not really want to send it, both for confusion around the import tax, that's the one, and the sheer size and weight of it all. Because as some of you may already know, when I was in Norway, my dear grandma passed away. And I'm not really going to talk so much about that on here. I've really said what I need to say about that on Instagram. But although I didn't really, want any particular things left after her or anything, there was one thing that really nobody else were going to take on because they already have this item. And that is a particular maker for waffle maker that I've always wanted, but you just can't get your hands on it here in the UK. You can get like a pretty crappy kind of waffle maker from Claes Olsson that I did buy myself when I got my PhD, when I got into the PhD program rather. And it's just not that good. It doesn't make the best waffles. They're not really turning proper crispy the way they're supposed to, but not, like those Belgian super crispy waffles. That's not the idea either. They're supposed to be kind of floppy crispy. Like pancakes, but like with a bit of a crust. And that waffle maker that my grandma had, that my other family members also have, is phenomenal. It's by Wilfa. I'm not really advertising for them, it is a really good waffle maker. And now there's one that nobody else wants. I'm like, but how can I get that to London? Now in conjunction with that, I bought so much Sandnes Tove when they were no longer going to be making that yarn. It's one of my favorite yarns from Norway, so of course I bought a lot. So much so that I really couldn't bring it with me to London in my suitcase. It was already full from being at Lofoten Yarn and what have you. So, well, we already have padding for the waffle maker. Why not just ship it all to me? So finally, without a bit of poking and prodding and convincing, and yeah, my mom sent it to me in one big box. One big box of joy. So much yarn. Don't get too shocked when I show you just sheer amount of yarn here. I don't know if we can even talk about all the yarn, but it's all Sandnes Tove except one, which we're going to talk about at the end. This is the yarn. These are 50-gram balls. There's quite a lot of them. This is heavy. I may have gone a bit overboard. I may have had a bit of a brain blip here. I didn't think I bought this much. I generally didn't. So these are actually in these Packmate bags. This is how I contain my yarn. I just obviously put them in a lot smarter than just showing off on the podcast. I'm going to need several bags for this, obviously. Vacuum bags is how my yarn survives the moth plague that is London. There's closed moths everywhere. And I like to keep all my knits and all my yarns safe, so they stay in those bags. I have tons of these Packmate bags. They are considerably more expensive than a lot of other bags, but I've actually found that these tend to all work. A lot of times when I get these cheapo brands, they don't really work and they inflate again. Whereas that can happen with some of these, but most of them, no. So willing to pay a bit extra for that, I guess, to protect my stash. For more affordable options, these Ziploc IKEA bags are pretty good. You want the blue ones. I think they're called Iskall or something like that. And if you sit on them when you close them, they will be pretty good as well. But these Packmate bags, they pretty gold standard, so I can recommend that if you want to keep your yarn safe as well, though it doesn't make it as nice to look at, and I really wish I could have all my knitwear out instead, but that's just the compromise, I guess, for living here. Look at the color palette. Look at that. They're gonna take this away from me. They're taking it away from us. They're taking it away from the knitting community. I'm gonna stop. First of all, let's talk about the greys. These aren't the same as the greys you get from Fionnuala. Granted, Fionnuala is a very, very similar yarn, but their greys are a little bit on the yellowish side. And these are kind of cooler. And just look at that. Look at that. I'm not going to get these greys anymore. What am I going to do? I didn't know what I had until I lost it. You know, it's very, very dramatic. It's very tragic. Very having a moment. Why is there not on this game? Well, nobody's perfect. I'm gonna more on this yarn. I don't know what they're thinking. I'm not gonna go over this. It's just yarn. Calm down. It feels a bit plumper than Fionnuala, I would say. This feels closer to PT2. That was also brutally taken away from me, merged with Fionnuala. Yeah, right. So being very dramatic now. I got 2 shades of yellow. I couldn't remember which of the yellows of Tove I liked the most, so I got these on separate occasions. One of you lovely viewers did and sent it to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I got a lot of this blue yarn for that. Let's get to that. It's probably going to be a Marius, isn't it? I also got some red and white for that. Thank you. I also went to the yarn shop in the town square in Trondheim and got some there, but then I also went to a yarn shop from the same chain closer to where I normally stay, and they also had it, so I also bought more there. And so there was just a lot of full bags. I was like, this is a lot of yarn. How am I gonna get this home? So I got some yellows. I'm not gonna use these together, I don't think. I just love this one. It's like, I think this is the one they called ochre, right? Or this, I don't know. One of them I really like, and I got them all. I like them all. I'm just gonna miss these colors. They are amazing. I haven't seen anything like it on any of the other shade cards, and I already talked about this navy, but this one is the one I'm going to be mourning the most. This turquoise right here. You can't, like this is what I did the Endeløs mitts with. Right? Like, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Why would you do this to me, Sandnes? Why would you do this? So if you're not familiar with this yarn, this is 165 meters per 50 gram ball. Works wonderful in color work and lace shawls and just all the stuff they use the woolies for. Great for steeking. And Sandnes having all the yarns to replace it. So why they would take that out and make all their color work cardigans made for fingering sport weight yarn not possible to make with their yarns, I do not know. Because they are a lot of Norwegians' go-to place for traditional color work patterns in addition to Rauma. Why would you let Rauma have monopoly on that? I do not know. I obviously love Rauma yarn, but I can't. Why? It's a decision I can never abide by. But anyway, what is exciting on that a different note is this new yarn, maybe, question mark, that this lovely podcast viewer observed in the factory when going there to see what's up. This yarn is not labeled with anything. I know nothing about it, but let's have a look-see. So I got these 4. Obviously, don't need to look at all of them. You can look at this. So rumors are going around that they're going to be launching a fingering weight Peer Gynt. This might be it, but I'm not sure if this is worsted spun or woolen spun, but compared to Tove, I'm going to say actually worsted spun. This might be the new Peer Gynt. It would probably be a pretty decent substitute for Tove. It's finer, it's thinner, it's different, it's not the same. And it also feels like there are longer hairs in it, but that might just be the worsted spinning of it. It might be worsted spun, short fiber, so that's why it's looking a little bit ambiguous to me. I'm gonna let you guys judge for yourself, looking at the yarn closer. I feel like this is worsted spun, it's just looking a little bit woolen spun because of the 2-ply. Because it reminds me a lot of just, 2-ply worsted spun yarns that I've seen in the past. So I'm getting a sense that might be what we're dealing with. But I don't know, this may not be the new fine Peer Gynt at all. It could just be something they were trying out and then they sell them really cheap in the factory. So it says 22 here, that's like £2. So yeah, quite affordable. Probably could have bought a bunch, but it was just fun to try out. Try to do some mittens or something. But I have no idea how many meters this has. I really know nothing about this yarn. It seems like it's pure wool, at least. Quite fine. My guess maybe 200 meters per 50 grams, something like that. Bit of a mystery, but interesting and exciting. I don't know, let's have a feel if it feels like Pigant. I mean, it kind of does. It might be. This is made in Pigant. And I am excited about this yarn. I really, really am. I just don't think it's a substitute for Tove. I can't get over how they would let go of that yarn. I don't get it. It's such a, it's as if Jameson would have quit making Jameson Spindrift. Like, it's like that for me. I don't, why on earth would you do that? Does not compute. But that's the yarn haul. It's a lot of yarn. I don't know where to put it. I have been very good at knitting from stash during lockdown, but I do live in a yarn shop pretty much. It is stash acquisition beyond life expectancy here, full on. So I'll have to shift things around to see where this is gonna go. Yeah. Keep in mind, I feel like I gotta be a responsible podcaster and say this, that I do run a knitting business. This is business expense. Do not compare yourself to this. Just don't. That's that. I guess I'm getting to the end of this episode. I have kind of mostly blended in life stuff into this episode as is. So I don't really have a whole lot to cover at the end of this. I'm going to have a nice little day out in Cambridge the day after my antibiotics are no longer a necessity, and just going to enjoy feeling alert and out there again, and me and I haven't seen my friends in so long. It's gonna be great. And hopefully I will see you in not too long. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter if you want to hear about when the new patterns are coming out, because I can't promise there'll be time to record another episode in time for that. So that's just a easier way to know what's going on with that. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.